I'm Teresa Caraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. In this episode, I'll be talking about Russell Brand's Under the Skin podcast number 198, The Matter with Things, by Iain McGilchrist. And in that, I'll be talking about concepts from time and space to eternity and infinity, from child prophets to whether New Age spirituality really is annoying. So let's get started. I want to start with a book from my favorite fiction author, Ursula K. Le Guin, called Words Are My Matter. There's a wonderful essay in this I'll be discussing in another podcast about why we need writers and artists to be imagining the future. But in this, I want to talk about just that title, Words Are My Matter. Russell has said before that the word matter or material comes from mother. And so are words and ideas real? Are they maybe more real? Are they maybe what is real? In looking at that, I want to talk about time and space and whether that's compatible with the concept of infinity and eternity. Because once you start calibrating something, once you start counting it, it can never be infinite. It can never be endless. It has to have a beginning and an end in order to be able to cut it up into little pieces. And so our symbol for infinity is the flow, as Iain says, that it is that constant motion, that being in motion, that is the thing that can be always continuing. I am inordinately fond of these Crow Tarot cards that I use, and one of my favorites is this one that has the Two of Pentacles, and it has the crow on the outside of the infinity loop spinning it. I study A Course in Miracles, and that uses Christian terminology of the Holy Spirit. I think of that as the spirit of wholeness, and I like the crow much better than the dove as a symbol of that because it's just more cunning and edgier. And in this, I love that idea that the crow is spinning from this top pentacle, which I think of as the spiritual realm, to the material realm, and keeping that constantly in that flow and in that exchange of ideas. So another thing that Iain was talking about, which I find very interesting, is this right-left hemispheres of the brain. At one time in my life, I was getting my doctorate in the psychology of creativity, and right-left hemisphere is a big topic there. A study that really impressed me was looking at the difference between schizophrenia and creativity as the corpus callosum, that both schizophrenia and creativity are really good at generating ideas and coming up with all kinds of ideation. But creativity is always passing things over to the other hemisphere for a reality check. And then they go back to ideation, then it goes back to the reality check. And so that rapid exchange in between the two sides is really what characterizes creativity and distinguishes it from just the delusion of schizophrenia. Another thing that Russell and Iain were talking about is the difference between good and bad. And Iain mentions at one point that you can only have the good with the bad. And Russell says that he has found that you can't vanquish love with hate. My daughter Cassandra has, I think the apt word is, warned me that you can only change what you love. And I think that's a really powerful concept. When I look at those dichotomies, again, going back to my Course in Miracles, what it says is there is no such thing as darkness. There is only the absence of light. And so I want to consider that concept also that maybe there's not love and hate. Maybe there's only love in the absence of love. Maybe there's only good and the absence of good. And I love that Iain was talking about knowing and not knowing. And there's those words agnostic, which is someone who says, I don't know. I don't know in terms of what God is. And the Gnostic who says, God is knowable. Not necessarily that they know, but that it is knowable. And so that mindset of not knowing and being willing to question, willing to question our reality and whether this world of our senses is more real than the world of our mind. A book that I've written pieces of is called Time Out of Mind, and it's the metaphysics of looking at whether time is something that is our construct, that it exists as this little space in infinity and eternity where God is not, because it is not, because it isn't real, because it is our dream. And so we're right now thinking of ourselves as being in this little space and projecting onto it, but what is real is our mind. So, moving on to whether New Age spirituality is annoying. And I've got to agree with Russell on this. I think it is. 10 years ago, there was a movie out called What the Bleep. And in What the Bleep, you have the characters who show that our perceived reality is not fixed, that it is permeable, that it is something that's affected by our thoughts. And the conclusion that ends up being drawn from that is kind of this law of attraction, which, to oversimplify, I grant you, is to say, if I need money, money will come to me. If I am sick, I can heal myself. And I think that I don't disagree with them in terms of the concept, but I don't think they're taking it far enough. If the world itself is something that is changeable, why not end world hunger? This is all as doable as doing something small. If it's true on all levels. And so it's not that I am in disagreement. I just think that they need to be taking themselves more seriously and going for the gusto. All right, last, I want to talk about child prophets. There's a point at which Russell, I think it is, talks about the story of Krishna when he's a young child and how these people come around him and say, oh, you're going to become a prophet when you grow up. And because Russell and I both are great admirers of Thich Nhat Hanh, there's a story that he has where he talks about that, and he talks about this, the time that Jesus is in the temple and all the wise men come up and say, yes, you are going to be the one. And what Thich Nhat Hanh says is that he wants every child to have that experience, to have that recognition that you are the one we've all been waiting for. You are our prophet. And that's what I want to say to you. Thank you. If you're intrigued and would like to go deeper into these ideas, here's another video on a related theme. And if you'd like to delve into this entire area, here's a playlist. Thank you, and I would love it if you would subscribe.